Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for August the 26th, 2021. This is episode number 73. Today, we'll be talking about Porsche Taycan updated for 2022, the Alpha Motor Wolf compact pickup truck debuts, Mazda MX-30 US price and range revealed, and much, much more. I'm Dominic Ioni, Inside EVs forum moderator and Inside EVs editor. Joining us today is the highly sophisticated Mr. Tom Moloughney, Inside EVs editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the melodious Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which, of course, is available on all the best podcast platforms. And, of course, Kyle Connor will join us shortly as soon as he gets some connection issues sorted out. And he is with Out of Spec Studios, and he also puts together awe-inspiring videos for the Inside EVs YouTube channel. So before we get going, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button. And of course, you can ring that bell icon on Twitch or on YouTube and be informed about any new videos that pop up on our channel. I was just talking with Kyle last night, and I think we were discussing maybe doing like a little pop-up show sometime through the week. So if you have that notification bell rung, you'll hear about it and tune in, and it'll be a great surprise. All right. So with all that out of the way, welcome everybody. Gary Clark says Kyle's going to get it. He's getting his hat. Yeah.
That's not it, Gary. He's actually washing his hat right now. He said it was too dirty to be on the podcast, so he needed to give it a good cleaning, and he'll join us as soon as it's in presentable shape.
So let's see what's we've been driving this week. I believe Martin, want to start with you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Kona Ultimate Spec got changed over for an ID3 Life Pro. You know what would be good actually if I could bring up the VW UK website as I'm talking to explain the specs, because I'm sure that they call them, you know, I wish that everyone would do what Apple do or Tesla do and just have the cars, because every car is a global car. Well, most cars are global cars these days. But yeah, I mean, you don't get the ID3 anyway, do you? But I'm sure that around the world it's called different things. I know that the ID4 is called different specs, and you get that. So let me see if I can bring this up and explain what the different kind of specs are.
The ID3 is called the Skoda Enyaq, also, isn't it?
That's the ID4 is the Enyaq, and the Audi
right.
Q4 e-tron. So
Born.
Yeah, so that's the not L-born, just born. So let's see if I can find that to explain the specs for you. And so I've got it's the base model but with a bigger battery, and this is taking a little while to load. But yeah, so there's the Max version, which was the first one. I think it's got like first Max or something, and then they kind of widened it out. So yeah, I've got the Life. And then there's the Style. I don't know what that is. Then there's Family. I go sideways. Then there's Family, Max, and then Tour. Is it Tour? Yeah, Tour is the one with the big battery. The batteries that's in the ID4 stuffed into the ID3. And last I heard, only 2 rear seats because it's too heavy. I don't know. Really? Last I need to double check that before VW call me and say, no, that's old. But at some point that was, it was a 4-seater.
Okay.
Because the average weight of 5 people and the battery was too heavy for the car. So, so I've got this, which is the basic spec. And if I click on engines, it is the 58 kilowatt hour Pro Performance.
They use engines instead of motors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, engine. And also scattered amongst the VW configurator that I was looking at last week was just like references to plug-in hybrids and the hybrid power of the car, and you're like, just get a copywriter that knows just like, I'll do it. I'll give you a really good price, VW. I'll go through your website and I'll take out any stupid mentions of there's just daft stuff written. Stuff that hasn't been written by anyone that knows like EVs. But anyway, so yeah, it's the basic trim, but it's the bigger battery, 58 kilowatt hour Pro Performance. Right, so that gets that out of the way. What's it like? I'll be honest, not great. it feels like I kind of have a running joke that the ID3 is just the Golf by a different name because they had an e-Golf and they wanted to get away and they wanted the ID range, but it's really not, and it's really not in any way a Golf. It feels like a Polo until somebody said to me today, who owns an Up, a VW Up, exclamation mark. They were like, "Oh, it's like an Up inside," and I think that would be a massive insult to anyone who designed the ID3, but it really is pretty basic. I don't know if I can.
The Up was just basically almost like a tin can with steering wheel right on the inside.
Yeah. I think the video might be a bit stuttery for you guys, but because I'm uploading stuff as well. But yeah, so it looks okay, but everything's very manual. And yeah, I'm not sure I can. Yeah, I think the video is going to be a bit slow to show you, but but yeah, it's just kind of coming from a car that admittedly was over-spec'd with the Kona Ultimate, so that is everything was electric, and you wanted for nothing on that spec car, albeit a compromised car because it was designed for multiple powertrains. You go to this, which is $5,000 cheaper, and a custom EV and loads of space, and you can play footsie in the front and the back. There's loads of room, but ultimately the cloth's all a bit naff. And the plastics are all a bit naff, and when you tap the dashboard, it feels like a Polo or an Up. It feels like a $15,000 car,
wow.
like a small city car. So lots of good reasons to love the ID3 base spec in terms of it starts at 30. I think I've got about £34,000 as spec because it's got the comfort pack. So USBs up the front and the back, USB-C. So that it's all good, and of course it's a custom-made EV. So
right.
When you go through all the menus, everything makes sense. But it just feels really cheap. And you think, well, would I spend $2 or $3,000 more and get a Kona or an e-Niro? Absolutely. And everything else is not really in that kind of price range. Everything's either a little bit more. If you're an ID4, a Skoda Enyaq, any of those kind of cars, you're taking a big jump up. And then cheaper, you've kind of got some cheaper brands, things like the MGs. There's an MG5, which is the estate. There's the MG ZS EV. So, but again, it's a much different experience buying an EV, much more of a value play. So, hey, first week or so with the car, not done a range test yet, but I don't know. I have this nagging disappointment at the moment. I'm hoping it gets better.
Was that the 2-wheel drive you have?
Yeah, rear-wheel drive.
Okay. Oh, okay, at least it's rear-wheel drive, so that's one thing it has going for it. So it sounds a little bit like my Spark EV. It's pretty value on the inside. Very hard plastics, and it's minimal everything. There's the fake leather in on my seats isn't is vinyl. They're vinyl seats basically, and they're fine, but they're not nice.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be really hard wearing, like the fabric seats. I'm sure they'll be very hard wearing and what have you. But just that overall experience of jumping in a car that's not that much cheaper than what I've just been in for 3 months, I thought, this is an interesting decision to make if you want to go for that pure EV experience. So I got a little trip to do tomorrow. I got 200 miles to do tomorrow, and so we'll see. We'll see. There's not too many chargers that can really max it out. The UK has redone its motorway network over the last sort of 3 months or so with 125 kilowatt chargers, but they're either 150 or 200 amp. So, what am I going to pull maximum on a 400 volt pack, like 80 kilowatts max? So I know that nothing I pass is going to really give the charging speed a good workout. So yeah, but we'll see. I'll check out the range over the next couple of weeks.
Right on. Welcome, Kyle.
Hold on. He's getting connected.
Yeah. So he can't hear us right now. We can't hear him, but that's okay. We'll get this.
But we can see him, and sometimes that's nice.
Can I?
If you're not going to talk, at least put your hat on so that people have something to look at.
Oh, it says you chose to mute themselves, so I can't unmute him. Okay, well, let's go upscale then.
Oh, I can hear you a little bit now, but it's so quiet. I'm sorry I'm having so many weird issues this morning.
You're in a hotel room, aren't you?
Oh, you're gonna have to. I don't know why I can barely hear you. Let me see if I can figure this out. Be back in a second.
Let me. Oh, okay. I was going to write it down on a piece of paper and hold it up. All right. So let's go upscale. Tom, you were looking at the Cadillac Lyriq yesterday.
Yeah, it was cool. I got another kind of last minute invitation. I did that last week with the Hyundai Ioniq 5. I think that what happened was all these automakers had plans of doing reveals at the New York Auto Show. And when it was canceled like 2 weeks before the show was supposed to start, that's already too late. The manufacturers have the vehicles en route to New York and all this stuff. So you get a call and it's like, okay, in 2 days, if you want to check out the car, you have to come to New York City. And I'm only like 50 miles west of that. So I was able to shoot over there and hang out with Cadillac and check out the Lyriq yesterday for about an hour, and was able to shoot a bunch of footage. We'll get a video up on Inside EVs probably in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure exactly when. I've got a bunch to edit, but in the meantime, we'll chat about it. So yeah, I was pretty, quite honestly, guys, I was impressed and I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. And I haven't been a huge Lyriq fan, and I had honestly, I haven't been following it as closely as maybe as I should have. There's so many EVs coming out now. I remember the day when I knew every spec about every car that was coming out because there was only a few of them, but now we're getting hit with so many new EVs, it's hard to keep up. And I think this one slipped by my radar. I wasn't a huge fan of the concept version. And the funny thing is the production version is pretty close to the concept, but it just works better for me. I couldn't really put my finger on why, but it did. And in person, I tell you, really nice. When you see the pictures and the videos that I have of the vehicle, that's the launch edition. I don't think they exactly call it a launch edition, but when they come at when the vehicle's available, and that's going to be first half of 2022, Cadillac begins taking reservations on September 18th. So in a couple of weeks, you'll be able to reserve one, and it launches first half of 2022 as a 2023 model. But as I was saying, I really wasn't paying as close attention to it. What you see there is $59,990. Everything except the wheels. The wheels are the only thing that's optional on that. Those are 22-inch wheels. It comes with 20-inch wheels standard, but everything on the inside, Super Cruise, heated and ventilated leather seats, the panoramic glass roof with the automatic shade closing, a 19-speaker stereo system. I mean, the thing is pretty well loaded. It's not like, yeah, it starts at $59,900, but to get a nice one, you've got to spend $70,000. No, at $59,900, the car is beautiful as it is. And if the current Congress ever pushes through the revised federal tax credit, then now you're talking about coming down close to $50,000. So it's a great value. That was that's what I took away from this more than anything, was that at 60 grand, this is a really good value of a luxury electric vehicle that's going to have 300 miles of range with a 100 kilowatt hour Ultium battery pack. It's going to be the first electric vehicle that utilizes GM's new Ultium battery technology.
Or the Hummer. The Hummer also has the Ultium. I'm not sure which comes out first.
Okay, yeah, I thought I had read that it was going to be the first one. Maybe the Hummer is going to beat it though, right? When's the Hummer coming in?
The Hummer's the end of the year, right?
Yeah, so it's probably going to beat it by a few months. I guess it won't be the first, but it'll be really closely after it, the Lyriq. And they're saying 300 plus miles of range. And I tell you, if you like Cadillac styling, the inside, you're going to feel totally at home with a Cadillac. Great luxury. This thing, if it's bigger than a Model Y, it's almost a foot longer than a Model Y. I thought it was about the same size as the crossovers in that segment, but it's not. It's much bigger. You don't get a frunk, which to me, I'm kind of over people complaining about, oh, it doesn't have a frunk. I think it's great if the engineering lends itself to having a frunk. But personally, I've never used the frunk on my two Model 3s. Never. It just sits there empty all the time because the back has enough room for me. And this has the Lyriq has over 60 cubic feet of storage space in the back with the seats down. It's got a lot of room back there. Hey, for that price, I mean, you you could easily get a Mustang Mach-E up to 59.9. I mean, really easily, not even the GT. And, with loading up with options. And if you would have set the two vehicles next to each other, now they're different vehicles, but in my opinion, the Lyriq, is a much more complete vehicle, especially for people that aren't really necessarily looking for sport. They're looking for luxury, a luxurious long-range electric vehicle. It's going to charge at 190 kilowatt maximum charge rate. And GM says that that's going to be good enough to add about 200 miles of range in 30 minutes.
200 miles of range, 30 minutes. That's not bad. I mean, it's
not industry leading, but it certainly isn't bad. For if you're on a road trip, 30 minutes goes really quickly. When you plug into say an Electrify America charging station, you walk inside to whatever store is there, convenience store or coffee shop or whatever, and then come back out. 30 minutes goes by pretty quickly.
Louis Diaz asks if it comes with a third row option. I do not believe it does. Right.
Yeah, I don't believe it will. I know at least this version doesn't. That Cadillac is obviously going to make different versions of the vehicle in the future. Now, the one drawback I will say, and it's a pretty big drawback, is this is rear-wheel drive. I know a lot of people might have just assumed it was all-wheel drive.
Right.
There will be an all-wheel drive version coming out in the future, but this launch version, and I keep calling it launch version. They're not calling it that, but the version that's available at the initial launch is just rear-wheel drive.
And this little sequence that we're looking at, this is like the startup sequence, like so the lighting on the front end does this little, present.
Yeah. So as you walk up to the vehicle with your key on you, that you get that visual present, and it happens all around the vehicle in the rear also. And it's hard to see. I have another video, but if you could look at the very top. Oh, nope. Now it went too high. If you could bring that back at all, Martin, if you look at the top of the hood where it meets the windshield, you could see there's a Cadillac emblem that lights up and it's on the back side of the driver's display. So you see it through the dashboard, and it's pretty cool. It's an LED Cadillac logo, a smaller version of what you see on the grill. And I thought that was pretty cool. That lights up too every time you walk up to the vehicle.
Can I just say, for the first time ever, I've got to go get a delivery from the front door because my wife is out.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to leave you guys to it, and I'll put it in this view, and I'm just going to go and get something for 30 seconds.
No problem.
As you were.
Hey, Kyle, can you hear us now? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here, and
Okay,
it's very quiet, but I have turned off all the air conditioning and stuff, so I can barely make out what you're saying.
Oh, crap. Well, all right. So tell me why I'm wrong about the Lyriq.
No, I actually don't think you're wrong. I mean, look, I think it doesn't look attractive to my eye, but in terms of value, you're going to have a whole bunch of cool stuff in there for the money. I mean, I think when this car was launched, we didn't have an exact price. And we were all thinking it's going to be $70,000, $80,000. And I think I was judging it as a $70,000, $80,000 base price car that's, going to be loaded up and all this stuff. But here they've sort of seemed to have lightened down the drivetrain a little bit, rear wheel drive only. It just looks terrible. I'm sorry from back there. But in terms of the numbers, this is going to be one of the best value mid-sized luxury electric cars, considering the list of stuff that you're going to be able to get, and it's probably going to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right about the look, but that is the worst angle to look at the car. What if I come around to that?
This back angle,
that rear three-quarter there, it's kind of like a Jaguar I-Pace and a Pontiac Aztec.
right. Yeah, I was looking at this kind of
which is not a compliment. But that's the worst angle there. I think in most other angles it looks pretty good. Large panoramic roof is standard with the automatic sunscreen. I mean, those are the standard seat speakers on the headrest. 19 speaker system. With heated and, as I said, and air conditioned seats are standard. Nice. One of the things I noticed I hadn't heard anybody talk about, and I asked the Cadillac representatives, and they were actually a little unclear about it, is there's a power outlet in the back seats, not a USB, a regular 120 volt power outlet in the back seat. And I asked them how much power it'll deliver, and nobody knew. And they're gonna get back to me on that. So when I eventually do an article on this, I'll have that information. But in the center console, on the bottom, there's a USB. There's one or two USB-Cs. It's all USB-C, by the way, in the vehicle. And there's one in the center console. There's a USB-C, interestingly, on the top of the center console. So you don't have to open anything. You just plug directly in. And then in the back seats, and then there's that power outlet there. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard about that yet, but I didn't. And I was a little surprised by it. And I've got some pictures and stuff of it. I just haven't sent them over to Martin.
Most every new car that I test that's combustion has a power outlet in the back, but it usually is only 300 or 400 watts is usually, and it'll say on the cover, max 300 watt continuous or something like this. So I'm hoping this can do a full 1.3 kilowatts. That'd be awesome. But
exactly,
I doubt
it should be able to, Kyle. But this didn't have that because obviously this is a pre-production model,
right?
Yeah, I think the new Hyundai Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 can do something like 3.6 kilowatts because we're 230, 240 volts. So
in the UK,
yeah, that's a proper amount of power. Yeah,
right. You can plug in your battery operated or your plug-in chainsaw with that.
Oh yes.
But here in the US, we only get 1.9.
Okay.
Yeah. Kilowatt. But and another thing that I noticed, see that huge charge port on the driver's side front fender? I asked about that.
I don't know.
So it's power operated. What you do is you touch the Cadillac logo, which you see is on the top right-hand corner of it, and then it opens. It pulls out and slides down.
Right.
That it wasn't functioning on this, or they weren't allowed to do it, so I couldn't get video of that. But I asked, why is it so big? And that's because it's this power operated charge port on the Concept. If you remember, it was kind of the same thing, but that whole panel was a charge port all the way down to the bottom of the vehicle, and it opened to the left into the wheel well. And they actually were planning on doing that, but then they realized they're not allowed to because for regulations, the wheel has to be able to be turned in full, left and right, and have no obstruction, even if the vehicle is sitting there parked and charging. And the wheel would have hit the charge port door, so they redesigned it a little bit.
Right. Oh, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think of that back glass? So, I mean, I think it gives you just more room, more volume inside for more things. But it does look a little bit funny with the back stacked up like that. There's like an extra 4 or 5 inches above that crease. It kind of it was a little awkward, but it does work with the big L. If you look at the top, the big the rear turn signal light or whatever, brake light, the big L hockey stick thing kind of swoops around the back. It sort of works with that in that space. So that's kind of nice. And that's the new. That's a really new Cadillac, electric Cadillac feature, that lighting shape there.
Yeah, and there's over 700 exterior LED lights, individual LED lights on the vehicle. So
yeah,
hopefully they last a long time.
Right.
You don't want 3 or 4 years to see like 10% of them out, because that just looks terrible.
Right on. All right. Anything else to say about that?
No, that's it. Just that.
Tom?
Oh, if you want one, the order book's open September 18th, and Cadillac says they're going to start delivering them first half of next year.
Someone did point out on Twitter last night, I think that it's the only car with a battery over 100 kilowatt hours or something that's priced that low, right? Every other one. I mean, battery size is not that important. Range is really more important, but
sure. Yeah, I had somebody. I just tweeted out a picture of it, and I had somebody immediately tweet out, BS. That's not going to launch with 100 kilowatts. Nobody sells 100 kilowatt hour battery for under 70,000. I call BS. Blah 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 blah. So there was a little back and forth between us, and he finally came around. Yeah, it wasn't bad, but he finally came around to say, okay, well, that's great, because this is rare that we get 100 kilowatt hours for an EV that starts with a 6, the price, albeit a very high 6.
Right. So, Mr. Connor.
Or 5, not 6. Sorry.
were you driving something electric this week?
A lot of things electric. I went on a giant road trip in the Tesla Model 3. about
Okay.
3,000 miles, and that's been interesting. For me, that's just a trip to the grocery store. We had to go up to Portland and then back. It's about 1,500 miles each way, no problem.
Jeez. That's in your performance Model 3?
Yeah.
Now with new control arms?
No, they have not been replaced yet. Timon had it
Oh.
up. He was working on it. He didn't have the correct tools. Now we do. So we're still squeaking along down the road every time we pull into a supercharger. It's so bad. It's really loud. Like you can hear this thing like a half a mile away now. So we need to get the control arms replaced.
Right.
It's so funny. Like this country is 500 miles from top to bottom. Like
you hear it from one end.
And that's like going all the way, up and down the country and then going, let's do it 2 more times. Like that's that's amazing.
Well, we did like 1,100 miles in one day on the way out to Portland, and it was no problem. We didn't leave crazy early. The sun was up, and we pulled in pretty late, but not like crazy. And it's just a great road trip. We're out here in Wyoming and Idaho. Speed limits are 80, 85, so you're just shredding it going down the highway, and you're doing the good old charge up, hop to the next one, charge up, and works really well. So I have to say, autopilot's been awesome on this trip. We've been having a great time cruising. Again, autopilot is just a driver assistance system. We not paying attention. I also spent some time with Polestar 2. We didn't really talk about it last show because it had just been delivered. But this was interesting. I did a range test in Polestar 2. And there's a funny story behind this range test that Tom knows that maybe we shouldn't put on the air. But we should. I'm going to be totally transparent. Why not? Polestar did not want us doing a range test. Someone inside their company gave me a go-ahead. I don't know who it was on the phone. And then they called me after we posted the range test, upset that we did a range test.
Oh, really? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, no, and it's fine. It's no big deal. They obviously granted me permission. They were happy, whatever. But I think it's weird how Polestar doesn't want their cars range tested. And I believe they did the same thing with Tom, and he had to go rent one. And I just don't like it when automakers are like, here's a car, and then you can only do certain things with it. They also said we could not compare this car to any other vehicle. So I think...
Oh, jumping up.
Oh, there you go.
I hope I'm back now.
You're back
you are,
now,
yeah.
Yeah, so, but it didn't do badly, right?
There we go. Am I back now?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay.
So it didn't do badly on the range test,
as soon as
right?
you start talking, I will stop. But I just think it's weird when an automaker tries to say, here's what you can and can't do with their car. That was a little odd. But we rocked and rolled with the Polestar 2, have to say, did really well in the range test, actually. 223 miles, I think, something like this, only 7 miles short of the non-performance pack, which I thought was a real win here, because if you're gonna get a Polestar and you're a keen driver, you have to get the performance pack. It's awesome. It gives you Brembo brakes, sticky summer tires, Öhlins adjustable dampers, gold seat belts, on and on and on, nicer wheels, and there's really no range penalty there. I thought that was awesome. And other than that, the car rocketed up my mountain road with no thermal losses at all up until the very end. So I have to say, aside from maybe Model 3 performance or maybe on par with Model 3 performance, this had the longest thermal longevity of any EV.
And it's compared to anything, but
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to go ahead.
One sec. Not to compare it with anything else. So just the Polestar 2. Okay, just continue. It's okay.
Am I good to keep going now? Okay. Thanks for the hand motions, and then I'll try and restart. Sorry. Rocketed up the mountain road, handled really well, super tight. Loved the Öhlins. Every time we did a video where we drove it in the city and the mountains and on the highway, and for each sort of version we were driving the car, we put it up on the jack and adjusted the Öhlins dampers and really dialed in the car for each use case to give an accurate review. And fantastic at that stuff. The car looks pretty good. all around feels special, but the charging curve is not so good. And so I was thinking about getting one, and I thought, like, if this thing charges like an e-tron, I'm trading in my Model 3 right now. But it does 150 kilowatt from 0 to 8%. And then at 9%, it drops to under 100, and you never see triple digits for the rest of the charging curve. It's 2 hours, 3 minutes, 0 to full. But that last 90 to 100% does take a while, but it's not like that long. Like 0 to 80, I haven't looked, but it's got to be an hour and a half.
That's not ideal. Yeah, that's like an hour longer than what Model 3
I'm
usually
going to
is
try
like.
and restart my thing here, so I'll be back in a second.
Hey Tom, Model 3. So Model 3 0 to 80 is like a half hour, 34 minutes, 35 minutes?
Yeah, it's somewhere between 28 and 32 minutes in the bunch of times that I've tested it, right around there. Yeah. So I mean, but it's tough to compare it against the Model 3 because the Model 3 does charge really well.
Sure.
It's the bent. I did a DC fast charge test with the Polestar, and I think my results were a little bit better than what Kyle's were. I didn't go to 100%. I stopped at, I think, 90%. And I don't think it was much more than an hour, but I have to take a look. It's not a great charging electric vehicle, but it's not terrible, but it's not a great charging. I think sometimes Kyle's standards are higher than mine when it comes to holding it. But I mean, that's all how you individually drive. Kyle does so many long road trips that it's like if he stops more than a half an hour anywhere, it's just a total waste of time, and it's not a good charging experience. Well, one of the things I want to talk about Polestar really quickly, Kyle, and Kyle noticed this also. So when I was doing the Polestar range test, when I got down to 2%, I'm cruising on the highway at 70 miles an hour. The car just started slowing down. I never had that happen to me before I hit 0, where the car wouldn't maintain 70 miles an hour, which isn't all that fast. And I'm just saying that if anybody out there has a Polestar, understand once you get down under 3%, the car probably won't maintain highway speeds, and it can be tremendously unsafe. I mean, I know most people won't take it down that low, but every now and then it happens. And we do these range tests all the time. How many cars Kyle and I have range tests? I can't even count how many. And I've never had it where before I hit 0, the car won't maintain 70 miles an hour. Now I've had the spongy accelerator that, you step on it and it won't accelerate, but at least it maintains. So the Pulsar 2, when you get down under 5%, understand, it might not be safe to drive it on the highway. Just FYI.
Right.
I would agree with that. It does this sort of, most EVs sort of rely on a mechanical limitation, if you will, of how much power they can output given the pack voltage. And they let it sag just to the point before, it sort of bricks the pack, the voltage sag. Because obviously when you pull current out with the motors as a power request, the pack voltage decreases. In Polestar, and Tom, I'm curious what you think, it feels like a very artificial throttle limitation. It's like it's going into this most extreme turtle mode, and you try accelerating at 2%, especially at 1%. And look, every EV slows down at low state of charge. There's not one that doesn't. When there's less pack voltage, there's less current that you can pull. Of course, I just explained why. But this is an extreme case of just, we're talking 35 miles an hour when it gets down to 1% maximum travel speed. I mean, look, I'm glad the car is still moving. That's awesome.
Right.
But that should be like kind of like a warning to the user, which is like plug in now and like maybe stuff that below 0% indicated.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. It was the first time that I mean, I've always, when I do these range tests, I really try to nail it where I'm pulling up to the Electrify America charging station when I'm at below 2%. But this was I was convinced I wasn't going to make it because it couldn't maintain highway miles. I had to get off the highway way before the exit. And now I had to do all these back roads. So I had to actually, instead of only being 3 miles from the charging station, I had to go 7 miles. Because I had to go this fun, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to make it." And as Kyle mentioned earlier, I borrowed a car from someone because I couldn't get it from Polestar. I wanted to do range tests, and I didn't want to go through whatever. And so I'm like, "Great!" Like I got to call my friend now and tell him, his car is bricked on the side of the road, and I need a tow. But it turtled it at 20 miles an hour. I was holding up traffic. roads that are like 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. I'm going 20 miles an hour, just crawling. And I'm like, there's no, and then every time I saw a slight incline in the road, I'm like, hey, well, I'm not going to make the top of that hill. No way. But it just crawled along full throttle. And I rolled in. I was sweating, and I usually don't sweat, but I was, tight, white knuckled, sweat coming down my brow, like, but I did make it. And I just thought I had to bring that up because Kyle and I have driven every EV out there, range test, charge test. This is a unique experience. Like, that I expect that once I've driven 4 or 5 miles below zero, not while the range indicator still says 1%, 2% state of charge.
You're absolutely
I don't expect
correct.
it at that point.
That I would consider that not usable range. That is like when we're doing our range test, Tom and I will get into that buffer. We'll use it. That's great. Thank you very much. But don't indicate like that's after we hit zero in a lot of cars. Like we experienced this, but after the car's like, dude, you're done. Sorry. Anyway, I have to say my overall impression of Polestar is when I see one on the road, I'm going to know this dude went out of his way to buy a really cool car and is probably a really cool dude. And is just like, to me, one of the coolest cars, but it's just not. It needs that last 10%. It needs better charging. It needs a little bit better on-limit handling in terms of a larger rear motor. Dominic, I think a couple of weeks ago we spoke about a Polestar 2 concept that they ran at Goodwood, which was basically software optimizations. They said they had no real plans to put this into the market, but I think the increased power, if it was on the rear axle, would have made all the difference in the world to just kind of rotate the back end out of a corner because it was very understeery. No matter what I did, it just pushed, even setting it up in track mode. And to me, that was a little bit uninspiring. I thought it had such a hardcore suspension, such a hardcore braking system, and then you're just going to make it push around all the corners on the limit. Most people, granted, won't be driving their Polestars like that, but I have to say, thermal management, truly insane on a back road. Very impressive car. And I hope, is it okay now if I talk about a little bit of the plans we have coming up next week? Is this an okay section?
Yeah, this is a good time. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so next week, actually, in just a couple days, I will be, first off, I get to experience Model S Plaid this weekend. I'm so excited. This is going to be really cool. I don't know if I'll be able to drive it, but I hope I get to get a launch in. I'm one of the few cars I'm genuinely extremely excited about, not because I'm a Tesla fanboy, just because this thing is bonkers on paper. And I want to experience, 2 seconds 0 to 60 with 1,020 horsepower. It's going to be amazing. So also, I've kind of been like configuring Page on Tesla quite a bit the last few days. If anyone wants to buy my Model 3 Performance, make me an offer. It's got 91,000 miles. It's been loved. Maybe sometimes. And
it'll have new control arms.
It will have new control arms, brand new brakes, and I'll even include Martian wheels and brand new tires for you.
I mean, it's basically a celebrity car. Now, we've all heard so much about it. It should command a premium, really.
Well, I think it actually does the opposite to the car.
Yeah, we've got proof that it's been torture tested.
Yeah, it had beer exploded in the trunk and then rotted away for a week. It's been thrashed around the track. It's been off-roaded. But I have to say, the car's actually clean. Like, you would have no idea that it's been through anything. It's a tank. But anyway.
I've seen it sideways on some gravel roads. But
it's done a lot of gravel roads. But the paint's fine. It's got paint protection film on it, so it's good.
Sweet.
Yeah, so Plaid this weekend, that's going to be with Eric Strait from the YouTube channel Derek. He invited us down to come experience his car. Super nice guys. They live only an hour and a half away from us or something. So we're going to go down do that. That's going to be amazing. Also, after that, I'm going to hop on a plane, and eventually, after some driving some combustion cars in Detroit, I'm going to go to Munich, and I will be in Europe basically for the entire month of September up until the last couple days. And this is going to be the most insane, epic, I hope, trip. I'm so excited. We have like 15 to 18 different EVs lined up, from Neo to Xpeng to Fiat 500Es to Honda E's. Trying to think what else we were trying to line up. Trying to do some Taycan Cross Turismo high-speed Autobahn stuff. The list goes on. It's going to be incredible. Mocha E, ID3. Volkswagen was kind enough. I said, look, I'm going over there. We need a camera car. And they gave us an ID3 for the entire month of September. Thank you very much to Volkswagen. We'll be doing tons of videos with that, of course. And look, I think a lot of YouTube channels are sort of doing these paid sponsorships with Volkswagen. We did not do that, so we'll just take their cars. And that way we can remain ethical. I'm excited about ID3, though, because ID4 is so good here in the US, but I hear so many mixed things about it in Europe. So we'll have to live with it, see what it's like at high speed. Hopefully it does more than 100 miles an hour. And trying to think what else we have. UFO Drive is giving us a Model 3 long range for as long as we want it. We're going to take that up to Oslo. Hopefully we can do a collaboration video with Bjorn. That's in the works right now.
Ooh,
and then we're going to do range testing and charging testing on everything, top speed tests on the Autobahn. It's going to be epic.
Sweet. Yeah, there's some nice things coming up to the IAA show in Munich. Tom, you're going to be there too, right?
Absolutely. And so will Andre from Inside EV. So
right.
Kyle, I, and Andre will all be there. And hopefully we'll get together for a bit.
It's the Italian Inside EVs team too, I believe. We have a few editions of Inside EVs around the world, Italy.
And Germany, of course. So a German team will be there.
Right. All right. You won't be there though, right, Martin?
I won't be at the show, but I might go to Munich to catch up with you guys and maybe even do the podcast live. But I didn't chase up press tickets, and I don't have the time to do 1 or 2 press days anyway, because of a bunch of travel I'm doing anyway. But yeah, that's 800 miles for me, which is like, that's simple to do, right?
We have the ID3 at that point.
Store.
Kyle did that this morning.
Yeah, exactly. He just got up at 4 a.m. and did it. It's fine. So I'll have the ID3 Life Pro 53 kilowatt hour pack.
Is that the spec that they're including in most of the media vehicles over there, the Life Pros? Because I don't know what spec mine is.
Yeah, I don't know. But as long as you get either the mid-size or the large battery pack, you'll be fine. If they're giving you a 43 kilowatt hour pack, you'll be charging a lot. But no, so I'll drive that over and see you guys, and we'll do the show. We can all gang up on Dom. He'll be the odd one out. We'll just all be,
at the beer garden.
Germany. Yeah, drinking beer and anyway, yeah.
Eating wiener schnitzel. curry. What's that curry thing from the Porsche factory that they just got rid of? Curry.
Oh, Currywurst.
Currywurst. Yeah.
They got
I'm
rid
not
of
sure
it?
what that is, but they talk about it a lot.
Okay, sausage.
Oh, it's okay. Curry sauce.
Spicy.
Okay.
Spicy
I'm
sausage.
very excited to see you guys. It'll be great to see Tom in Germany, and it'll be great to see Martin over there. Hopefully, Martin, we rented an apartment in Munich for the month, so we should have like a little area, I hope, in the reception that we can stage to do a podcast.
Cool.
Worst case, I think there's Motor One offices over there as well that we might be able to use.
Oh, sweet.
Cool.
All right. So we have a bunch of stories today to talk about. So let's kick it off with some news that broke yesterday that Tesla is giving customers with the Model 3 SR Plus on order the option of getting it with an LFP battery. Now, LFP, for those who don't know, stands for lithium ferrophosphate, but we usually say lithium iron phosphate. It's an older battery chemistry. It's not as energy dense as the batteries that we see in EVs here in North America and Europe, but it has improved some over the years and does have some good attributes. It's cheaper. It can tolerate charging to 100%. It's safer and it doesn't like to catch on fire really, and it has a good cycle life. Elon responded to a tweet about it saying, our intent with this pack is that product experience is roughly equivalent between nickel and iron. I'd personally slightly opt for iron pack as it wants to be charged to 100%, whereas nickel prefers 90%. So here on the screen, you can see the letter that went out to customers. We are contacting you about your Model 3 Standard Range Plus, currently estimated for delivery near the end of the year. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to receive your car even sooner. Due to limited supply and strong customer demand, we are introducing the Model 3 Standard Range Plus battery pack, which we already released in Europe and Asia to North America. This battery has a range of 253 miles estimated. If you are interested in taking delivery as early as September, please visit our inventory page and search for Model 3 Standard Range Plus vehicles. If you choose to order, your original order fee can be applied to the purchase price of your vehicle upon delivery. We will continue adding inventory on a rolling basis. Please check back regularly for a refreshed selection. Thank you for your continued support. Best regards, the Tesla team. All right. So because the packs are less energy dense, the Model 3 Short Range Plus with them are only rated for 253 miles. That's 10 miles less than the Model 3 with the 2170 cells from Fremont. There are things we don't know yet. Does it make the car heavier? How does it affect charging curves? Does it affect acceleration? These cells have been shipped in cars to Europe already, so maybe some of these things have been tested out already. It raises another issue as well. Is production so high now in the U.S. that the Gigafactory in Nevada can't keep up with demand, or are there material supply chain issues with the materials for those cells? Another possibility is the Tesla Model Y that are going to be produced at the Austin Gigafactory. They were supposed to have the new 4680 cells. However, Elon said that they may have to start using 2170 cells in the first part of the production if the 4680 production isn't sorted out in time. So maybe replacing the usage of 2170s in the Model 3 Short Range Plus will free up production capacity to use them in the new Model Ys from Texas. I don't know, Kyle. What do you think?
Oh, it's hard to say, but I'm actually pretty excited about this new Model 3 standard battery pack. You know, technically it's a little bit heavier, may not be as energy dense, but here's the benefits. Model 3 Standard Plus, as we know, are used in some pretty harsh environments, rental use cases, owners who have to charge them DC a lot because of no apartments or no home charging, for example. This is sort of, the workhorse of the Tesla lineup. It's the easiest to get into, and it's going to be used the hardest. And these battery packs can just charge up to 100%. I have a variation of the LFP chemistry in my van that I, tow around in, and I keep that thing charged at 100% all the time because it doesn't hurt it. And so
got higher discharge rates as well, and incredibly safe and no cobalt. So there's loads of reasons why it's. Although I do have I have a listener to my podcast in I want to say Austria, but maybe it's Switzerland, and he took delivery of his LFP batteried Model 3 in January when it was very cold where he is. I don't know if he lives in the mountains, but probably pretty snowy in Austria or Switzerland. And he was plugging in at a low state of charge and getting 15, 20 kilowatts charge speed on Tesla superchargers. That's
not uncommon though.
And really, even with cobalt. So he feels that the LFP packs, which they came out of the Chinese Gigafactory, he feels they put them in the car and thought we'll work out the software later. And
that's possible.
He thinks it's much better now, but when he first got his car, he said it was just charging ridiculously. He's an engineer, so he sent me a ton of screenshots and just felt it was at low. And I know that Björn Newland also had this in one of his early YouTube videos with the pack as well. I wonder if that was just a case of Tesla saying, ship it, and we will do an over-the-air update, and we'll work out battery management on.
Well, they've done this on their cars before. Early Model 3 was the same way.
That is the way.
Barely charged in the cold, but that can be software tuned. I thought you meant like he had just woke up in the morning and walked over to a charger and plugged it in. Because I'm like, sometimes I'll do that on a really cold day and it won't even charge, of course, if the battery pack is dropped below freezing.
No, I think this was genuinely, it was cold, and the pack wasn't even cold soaked. It was just at cold ambience, and it was just not coping. But in theory, it should be as good as anything else charging temperature wise. Discharge rates are good. Performance is good on these packs as well.
That's what I was thinking, because this is the chemistry that we use a lot in conversions and things, and some of the cells were, maybe because the battery packs were smaller in those conversions, there's a lot more sag in the older cell chemistry.
Very, very safe. They use this chemistry in the BYD batteries as well, the ones that they talk about, shooting and shooting a gun at the things. They can't get them, so they don't explode. There's no fires, and very cheap. And any car maker, any global car maker that doesn't have a serious supply of LFP batteries for their low-cost city cars is not serious about making EVs.
A statement.
a lot of them don't want to make EVs anyway, and a lot of them
Right.
go, well, we can't make an EV for 15 grand, because if the Chinese can do it, Chinese prices have come down on EVs year after year since 2011. The average price of an EV has continually come down in China year on year. They found better, cheaper technology. In the US and Europe, the average selling price of an EV has gone up year on year. The car makers do not want to sell you an EV until it's ready for them. And many of them don't have a solid supply of LFP batteries. And if they did, they'd be making small, low-cost city cars better than their combustion cars right now. And the Chinese are doing it. And Tesla have worked out, well, this is the best way to get cars to customers.
Right.
And this technology, I think, is also primed for use in home storage, I think. I don't know. Don't quote me. It might be going into the Powerwalls and things.
So this is from I think they're getting this from CATL, CATL. That's the Contemporary AmpereX technology. That's a big battery company in China. Really, kind of a newer company, like newer than BYD, but for sure. But they are, it's a really ambitious company, and they've just exploded in size over the last few years. And they're aiming to be like the biggest battery company in the world. That's their ambition, anyway. So yeah. I was kind of surprised to see this. I didn't really expect to see LFP come to the US because it's like that slight range penalty, but yeah,
it's just not sexy. It's just I've had Tesla fans over the years berate me, and some of them every time I've kind of criticized the company, and they've said to me, "You just don't understand it. Like you don't understand they've got their 5-year lead on battery technology. Elon Musk's a genius. You idiot on a podcast. You don't get how far ahead they are, and all they've gone and done is gone to the market and gone." What are they using in buses? Oh, we'll buy some of that because it really makes sense. They've just gone out into the marketplace and what every other car company has done, got a battery supply contract. There's nothing special about these batteries. And that doesn't fit with the Tesla narrative of, Elon being in the lab late at night, coming up with fancy new concoctions and then sending a rocket into space. It's just really boring, solid commercial vehicle technology. And it's really, really good. And Tesla fans should be happy. This. It guarantees the supply.
It's really progressed because the early LFP batteries weren't that great, So it's really, that chemistry has really been improved over the last decade. So it's nice because that's really, how Tesla got ahead, so fast. They were the first to package, a full size vehicle with like over 200 and whatever miles of range, and they did that, by packaging all the little tiny cells together. So I understand, why people may think that Tesla has a huge advance in batteries, and it does in a lot of respects. But the rest of the world is also advancing. They're not standing still. Their companies are are improving, and there's battery chemistries waiting in the wings to blow us away. Yeah.
It makes all the sense in the world. It really does make sense, especially for the short range plus. And I had somebody on Facebook message me this morning that they got the email from Tesla that they had the car in order and they can get it faster, and they were concerned about is this an inferior battery and so forth. And I told them, go, it's fine, go get it. You're better off with it. And I think that's what should be the theme of this. I think that we all concur that don't be afraid of this. Yes, it's a few miles less on the EPA range rating, but I think any of us would be happy with the LFP pack if we were to get a short range Model 3 right now. So, I think that's really what you take from this. I don't think there's a huge downside. I would get it in a second.
And also, the specs for the standard plus Model 3 are like seriously on par or better than most average EVs on sale today. And this is like, here's our worst one.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see?
This is our cheapest entry level model. And actually, it's a good point. I'll just quickly say as well, I think this is really important with Kyle just mentioned it. You can charge to 100%. In fact, they recommend Chinese customers were recommended to charge to 100% to balance the pack out. And as we enter the next phase of the adoption curve of electric vehicles, like this whole, hey, go to 80% and only 100 if you're going to go on a road trip in the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, your battery health. Like, I'll tell you a very quick story. I was charging this week and a Peugeot E2008 turned up. Two Spanish women inside it. They'd moved to the UK and they'd leased a car. So they'd gone electric and they had a new iPhone, which they'd never had. They turned up and they were like, how do we charge? Like, Brilliant. Well, firstly, points for bravery. Like they just weren't phased at all. Like, we're going to move to Great Britain,
And they
buy
just would expect that you would be there to train them on all of
and
the
I
charging
was.
infrastructure.
And
They're in
unfortunately,
luck.
I was at a charger that you couldn't just tap your bank card, and it was one called PodPoint, which you've got to download the app and register an account, and it's a faff. And yes, so I went through that with them. But are these two women ever gonna, who just want a car to drive in a different country, however many years they're here for, whatever, gonna be all of a sudden reading the manual and like, oh, hang on a minute, I can go to 80% of my Tesla, or it's gonna hurt the battery? No, people like that just want a car, and it runs on electric, not petrol. And like, these are people buying EVs now, and we've gone past that stage of just the super nerds like us owning them. So the fact you can charge it, you can use and abuse that battery, is a really, really good thing, because most people just won't care about battery, health.
And to make matters worse, Mark, to your point, every EV has different rules. It's like, okay, if you get if you get the Polestar, like Tesla, they let you use nearly the entire pack. What is it? You get 75 kilowatt hour usables out of a 78 kilowatt hour battery pack. So they're like, do not charge this near to 100%. Volkswagen does it too with the ID4 pretty much. The Mach-E has a bigger battery buffer, but we can't expect people to learn usable capacity, total capacity. Okay, it's more than 90% of the total capacity, so yeah, I shouldn't charge for 100%. It can't be that hard. It has to just be plug and play. Now that we're moving from early adopters to the early majority and the adoption curve's picking up, this has to get sorted out. It has to be made simple. It's great for us. People come to the Inside EVs podcast to learn exactly how they charge. But, for really, if we want mass adoption, it can't be difficult. You have to just be able to plug the damn thing in and not have to go online forums to say, well, if I'm going on a road trip, I can charge for 100%. But if not, I need to charge to 90%. But if I'm going away on vacation, I need to charge to 80%. If I'm, that's
all that's going to go away.
It's got to go away.
Yeah. All right, so we're going through the time. Let's move on to our other stories. All right, let's talk about the debut of one of the coolest electric vehicles to date, the Wolf from Alpha Motor Corporation. Now, Alpha Motor popped up on the radar last December when it released the digital design of a cool-looking modern retro coupe called the Ace. It followed that up in February with a safari version of that car called the Jax. Then in March, it showed off a pickup truck design called the Wolf, a compact pickup truck. And they followed that up with a king cab version called Wolf Plus, and later a four-door version called the Super Wolf. Now, we haven't really talked about them here on the podcast before because they've just been like CGI designs from a brand new company with no major backers that we could tell. Now, though, they've put together an actual physical vehicle, and it just made its debut at the Peterson Museum, where you can go and see it as part of the Peterson Museum's exhibit called "Alternating Currents: The Fall and Rise of Electric Vehicles," which explores the history, development, and resurgence of electric vehicles. Now, I don't imagine it's a functional vehicle, but it does look pretty much like the renders, like surprisingly close. You can reserve any of the models they've shown so far, but I wouldn't do that until there's like a lot more information about the company out there, like who runs it, for instance. There are no names mentioned on the website. A Michael Smith was the CEO for about 6 months until last January. The company is headquartered in Irvine, California, they've got some swanky looking new office real estate, but the company itself is registered in the Virgin Islands. So I think there are some red flags there. There are a couple of guys who appear in the video introducing the Wolf, but we're not told their names. So, they look kind of like the one guy strikes me. They look like designer types. So these obviously seem to be the two guys. Who are behind the company and the vehicle, and they've made all this happen, which is something. But yeah, so one thing I thought was pretty interesting is that the performance specs they give are pretty moderate. They're not making extravagant claims. The Wolf is supposedly starting at $36,000 before incentives. It's a compact pickup, roughly the size of the Ford Maverick. It's a little shorter because the Ford Maverick is a four-door, and this is just a two-door. but it comes in 4-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. Acceleration is 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. So you're quick, but not like crazy. It's intended to have a 75 to 85 kilowatt hour battery. Estimated range 250 to 275 miles. Production target date is the end of 2023, which is a little early if they don't have a technology partner at this point. I don't know, Tom, total scam, or is there enough here to attract investors and maybe a technology partner?
Well, I don't want to get sued if I say total scam.
Right. Okay.
But I would just say I wouldn't put any money down on this vehicle just yet. It's really cool. I mean, who doesn't want an all-electric 1985 Toyota pickup? It does look cool.
That's what people say about this, right?
We can't get any information. I know other people in our industry that's really reached out hard and tried to get information, and they've gotten nothing back. They've gotten responses, but just like, leave us alone. We'll give you information when we are ready to give you information. And you just don't act that way. So, hey, really cool. But buyer beware.
Right. I like the voiceover when you watch the video. If you go to Inside EVs, you can just punch in alpha motor, but it's almost like a video game thing. It's like, welcome to Alpha Motor Corporation. I feel like I'm in Half-Life or something. Or Fallout. One of those. It's just like this kind of bizarre. Is this real? Kind of feeling about it, but the designs are really great, and so like I'm like, I want this to be true. I want this to happen, but there's still a few. Maybe we should send an invite to the podcast to let them defend themselves on the podcast to y'all. What do you think, Kyle? You have opinions. I know Kyle has opinions.
No way would they come on. Basically,
do you want to guess my opinion before I share?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I think, because this is nowhere near production and nowhere nearing having the capability of production and nowhere nearing having the capability of explaining how they're even going to produce it and nowhere near even explaining what the hell they're going to put inside of it, that this is dumb to talk about.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, we don't have to spend, I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time on it.
I don't want to come off rude, but that's sort of the thing is like, if it's not real, I don't like to waste time on it, but looks awesome. If this was a thing and I could go buy it in 3 to 6 months, which is probably more like a year, just double estimates whenever someone gives them to you, sometimes triple, that could be pretty exciting. But it doesn't sound like they're being extremely transparent with people about what they're doing, which is just a red flag.
Right.
And like you said, we don't even know who runs the company. They're registered in the British Virgin Islands. They're in Irvine. Like, this all seems just weird. Maybe we've painted a bad picture for them, but I would say, I'm much more excited about the prospect of getting people in electric cars to experience. And I think Rivian, F-150 Lightning, and even Cybertruck is closer than this thing.
Didn't that tent that some company designed a tent for the back of the Cybertruck, and we featured that, and you were like, it's just a render. And then I think they opened up for orders or deposits, and loads of people went, have my money. So what do we know?
Well, we know that there's a lot of dumb people out there that put their money on this thing. No, very true.
People want things to be, the truth to happen. People are trusting sometimes.
It's not time. It's impossible. Right. It is physically impossible for that product to ever be made in the way they have presented it. I have a whole 20-minute rant on the Out of Spec podcast.
We haven't got time.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't get into it now, but if you're interested, just look up Kyle Cyberlander somewhere and you'll see my 20-minute rant on YouTube about us actually analyzing how they plan to do this thing. And it's never going to happen like this.
Well, the Cybertruck hasn't been unveiled. Like the finished design
we still haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
Like Elon hasn't unveiled it. So
that's part of it, Martin. For sure. And we just imagined, even if it had twice the bed length, could you do this? And the answer is absolutely no.
Okay. So the 2022 Porsche Taycan and Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo are getting some updates. The Taycan has them selling pretty well. I think it's like equivalent to the 911 right now. And they've got a couple more ways to entice buyers. The most visually obvious thing is paint. It now gets a paint to sample option, which gives buyers an amazing 65 different hues from which to cover their cars. These include a couple colors from Porsche's past, including Ruby Star, which you can see in the press photos, and Acid Green, which was once used on a pair of 918 Spiders. So it may also have improved range and faster charging. Though no numbers were given for either of those metrics, the range improvements would come from a refinement of the drivetrain software, making it more efficient. The battery is now allowed to become warmer during charging, so that should affect the charging curve in a positive way, shortening charge times. The main tech improvement outside of that is the addition of optional remote park assist. This allows you to park the car while outside of it using the app on your phone. It can pull into a space, I believe, and also parallel park. So that's a pretty neat trick. It also has Android Auto now, but you have to physically plug in your phone. But it does have wireless Apple CarPlay. So Kyle, Tom, which of you are going to put this updated car through its paces first?
I think I'm gonna go drive it in a couple weeks in Germany, but that's beside the point. I think Ruby Star Red. The big news here is paint to sample on Taycan. All the Porsche people, whenever you go to a Porsche event, and they're like, you go to any Cars and Coffee, there's 90 GT3s. It's very unoriginal, but it's like this color of my stitching matches this part of my car, and it's because Porsche lets you customize however you want. And now with Taycan, full paint to samples available. You can do their selection of colors, heritage colors, if you will, that they've known and tested, but you can just send them a swatch and then, give them an extra 2 or 3 months and $12,000, and your car will come in whatever color you've just sent them, which is a really neat thing for personalization. You can make a whole Skittles. You can do like what some of the princes in Saudi Arabia did years ago, where they had a different color Mercedes for every day. So, plenty of options here. Big news for me, though, is the charging. It doesn't actually charge faster. There's no peak charging rate difference, so 270 kilowatt, but it will charge deeper into the pack thanks to thermal changes, which then they can unlock the software limited charging curve. Taycan already charges like a monster, so this is just going to be insane. And so I'll take mine in green, please.
It's going to chop some time off it, though, right?
Oh, of course, yeah, because your 0 to 80 will go from 22 and a half minutes to maybe 21 to maybe 20. I don't think we're going to see a massive. This is just little dials here.
Yeah. Kyle said it won't charge faster before. He meant it won't have a higher charging rate. I think that's why Dominic wanted to clear that up. It should charge faster, but slightly. But what I like about this is, as Kyle said, and Kyle and I have both talked about this, it's a charging monster, the Taycan. It charges fantastic. And the fact that Porsche, they could have just let it be, because it charges great right now. The fact that they're saying, you know what, it's great, but look, we're just going to keep improving this if we can make incremental improvements. And how they're doing that, I don't know if we fully explained it, was that they're going to allow the preheating to warm the battery up to a slightly higher temperature, and that's going to allow it to accept more power early on. And that's it's great that they're doing this. I always thought that the Taycan was just fantastic charging EV, and the fact that they're actually even harvesting excess heat from other electrical components. It's not like they're just pulling the energy from the battery, so you're using an extra kilowatt hour to charge a little bit quicker, which you're in like this cycle where you need to charge more, but you're charging quicker, and it really didn't add anything. What they're doing is they're harvesting excess heat from other components, and that's really the way to do it. So good on Porsche. And another thing I want to note is that they're on track now to sell well over 10,000 Taycans in 2021 in the US, which is phenomenal. That's like, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's very close on par with 911 sales.
It's on par with 911.
Yeah. So, to say that the Taycan was anything but a smashing success is just not correct.
Yeah, I think it's really great for just electric cars to have like a Porsche, a car people like and desire to be at the. This is what people are actually buying in good, strong numbers. That's like really nice. Hey, the drivetrain efficiency, that was kind of cool too. So that should increase the range, I guess, only by a little bit. But it's basically, I don't know if you want to talk about how they've done that. the specific things like disconnecting the front wheels and
Well, that's not really any different, is it? But I think Tom mentioned the big stuff, which is thermal management changes
right.
are going to lead to all the range. They're going to do a lot more heat harvesting throughout the entire drivetrain. When there's wasted heat from motors, that high voltage coolant loop is going to direct it back into a high voltage battery. It does this now. It's just little optimizations. It's unclear if these software improvements will come to earlier Taycans. But I will say, if it doesn't, I don't actually think it's that big of a deal. 21 versus 22 and usability. Isn't general consumer going to notice any of these differences? Probably not. But Tom and I, when we go out and test, absolutely. Sounds like it's going to be a blast.
That would be nice if the existing customers could have those improvements made to their cars as well. That would just be nice for customers. And I think Porsche's, I mean, that's like a customer service, I think.
Yeah, and they've been updating the cars. So they updated all 2021s to 2021 spec. The only thing that really couldn't be updated was the plug-in charge. Certain 2020s did get it, but this is a physical hardware update that you have to drop the battery pack for. And it's possible. It's just astronomically expensive to do it for every car. And so I think some customers who either, complained or had an issue with their charger and got a new one, got plug-in charge capability. Look, it doesn't sound like there's any hardware changes. It sounds like it can all be updated, and I'm sure we'll have another spurt of good news in a few weeks that says all the other ones will be updated, but what do I know?
Okay. So, our time's crazy today. So let's move from a pretty extraordinary car to the other end of the spectrum. The U.S. prices and range for the model for the Mazda MX-30 have been released, and oh boy. So, okay, it's coming in October, starting in California. Starting price is $33,470 MSRP. For that money, you get a front-wheel drive compact crossover with the ability to reach 62 miles from a stop in a leisurely 9.7 seconds with an EPA estimated range of 100 miles. The 35.5 kilowatt-hour battery is sized this way, they claim, because it allows it to, quote, maintain its superb driving dynamics and allow for a lower environmental impact. Now, Martin, I know you're enamored with this car. Would you buy this over the 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric, which is just getting a price cut here for 2022, and it costs just a few hundred dollars more now, and it goes 2.5 to 3 times as far and is a lot quicker.
Well, look, firstly, let's address the Mazda PR line of we put in a tiny battery because we are trying to save the planet. You put in a tiny 35 kilowatt hour battery because either nothing else would fit or you don't have a battery supply contract. It's like when I finish off my wife's leftover dinner because I'm trying to solve the global, food wastage problem. No, I'm just being greedy. And no, they're just making a terrible EV. It's not saving the planet. They're trying to spin it. Oh my goodness, this is a terrible, utterly terrible car. Design-wise, it's got some interesting cues. It's got the, for want of a better phrase, the suicide opening doors, a la i3, which is really interesting. It's kind of interesting to look at in places. It's got some design flourishes. I think there's some nice bits about it. But as for being an EV, I mean, it's really terrible. It's 6 kilowatts AC charging. It's 30 kilowatts DC fast charging. It shouldn't even be allowed to be called DC fast charging when it's got a 30 kilowatt peak charge rate. It is the slowest DC fast charging, DC slow charging car on the market at the moment. And it's just a terrible attempt at making an electric car because, I mean, yeah, they've just stuffed batteries and electric motors into the car, where they could. It's interesting in places, but it's another car company that doesn't want to make EVs, doesn't want you to buy their EV. And when nobody buys their EV, we'll go, well, we told you so. They'll say, we tried to make one. Nobody bought one. We were right all along. They'll sit around the boardroom table and be very happy with themselves because they proved themselves right. They could not make a good EV. Well done them. It's terrible, and you shouldn't buy one. And if you do, you should. There's a fully charged video. Robert Llewellyn made one, and he loves it. Like he's effusive with
Oh,
his
really?
praise, and he's like, "Well, the battery's a bit small, and I'm driving this in, in the winter." He says, "And the window is fogged up, the demister doesn't work, but don't worry, it's a great car." So he sees something that I don't, and maybe you like it, and maybe you should buy it, but you shouldn't buy it at all. And it's a terrible attempt at an electric car. I think I'm off Mazda's Christmas card list now.
You are. I kind of like the design, the front end, not so much because I'm not really a big Mazda front end. I like the MX-5, like the convertible. That looks great. But everything else I'm kind of mad about. But I do like the overall body shape of it. But other than that, I don't know, why would you not buy a Hyundai Kona Electric or a Mini Cooper SE, which is cheaper, goes a little bit farther, and a lot more fun to drive?
33,470, you say, on the price?
Yes.
And there's a big oversight here. So I'm going to go drive it the last week of September. This is why I'm coming back from Germany early.
Sorry to hear that.
This thing.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry, Mazda.
So they put on this like extravagant thing in Southern California. It's like a 3-day program to like learn and drive this car, which I just think is insane. I'm just like, give me the car. If you could just bring it to my house, that'd be great. I don't like doing all these press launches. I like to just do it at home because I don't need to be fed shrimp to say nice things about your car. If it's good, we'll say it's good. If it's not, we'll say it's not, obviously. But I'll book off like a whole day just to do the DC charging test for this. Is what it sounds like I need to do.
Yeah, you'll need to. Yeah. Maybe book a hotel for the night as well. You might be a while.
Yeah. Well, I don't even need the hotel. I'll be sitting at the charger because I try and get it right. Here's the thing. They say they retain driving dynamics that are known for Mazda. And that's true. All Mazdas drive great. They truly do. They're awesome cars. Never fast in a straight line, but always very tactile. And then they made it front wheel drive. Tell me how that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a different direction here. I love it. You know why?
Oh,
I can get up in the morning, have my breakfast, head out to Electrify America, top it off to 100%, do the range test, drive back, do my 0 to 100 charging test, do all the recordings, and be home for lunch.
Yeah, this is like this is the opposite.
It takes me like 15 hours.
Yeah, this is the opposite of a Lucid range.
I'm all in. Don't buy it, but it's for me. I love this thing. It's and Kyle's worried about the DC fast charge. The battery's only 35 kilowatt hours.
But if it does 12 kilowatts,
the peak rate's 30. I would imagine it's probably going to hold that for a while because it's such a low charging rate. Why would they need to throttle it down? I mean, the thing can. It could still be pulling 20 at 90%.
Because 30 kilowatts on a 30 kilowatt hour pack is the same as 100 kilowatts on a 100 kilowatt hour pack.
Let's see what the charging rate is. I think it's with a 35 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's not. I'll be shocked if it takes you more than an hour and a half to get 0 to 100. Let's see.
Is it liquid thermal management? Do we know?
Who knows?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so.
Really?
Okay,
that might be okay.
So we have an owner actually on the Inside EVs forum. I should go and check, see what because he was having some issues. They
have a lot of time to write about it.
They make a range extended version of this available in Europe, and so you can get it with a range extender. So the small battery works okay in that respect if you look at it like that way, like the BMW i3 with the range extender. But I don't believe that's an option here.
Wasn't it supposed to come as only a range extender?
No, they backed out of that. I think they were talking about it for a long time, and then they just made an announcement to say it won't come to the US. So it was going to be their rotary engine, which is good, and their technology there. But this is the ultimate dilemma of all established car makers because they're really good at making rotary engines, and it's interesting technology if you like burning stuff. And they're like, well, we'll put it in as a Rex then because we can, and it's like, well. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And the frustrating thing about the Subarus and Mazdas of the world is they can tap into Toyota technology. Toyota have got enough smart people working for the company. If the management wanted to sign off on making great EVs, that they've got access to intelligent, good people, but they don't want to. So anyway.
Okay, let's hit a couple subjects real quick, but I just want to say, so Mazda is like one of the smaller automakers in the world, and it looks like it's going to stay that way. So Tom, Lucid Lucid announced it's offering a performance and range edition of the Air Dream Edition. Can you tell us a little bit about that real quick? This performance version isn't the tri-motor one that they teased us at the drag strip a while back, though, right?
Right. No, it's not. So yeah, we just got this week, and what they're doing is with their Dream Edition, they're cutting it up into two different versions. You can get the Dream Performance or the Dream Range. There's not a lot of difference.
Okay.
The difference in power, the Performance version has 1,111 horsepower, and the Dream Range has 933. So I don't know how much you're going to feel that extra. What's that? 78 horsepower.
Yeah.
Out of that much, because the Performance goes 0 to 60 2.5 seconds, and the Dream Range 2.7. They both have a top speed of 168 miles an hour. Pretty much, they're both dual motor, all-wheel drive. There's not a lot of difference there. Obviously, the range is going to be a little different. We don't have the announcement on that exactly how far each one will go, EPA range rating. And the only other difference, I believe, is in the wheels. The Dream Performance comes standard with 21-inch wheels, and 19-inch wheels are optional. You can get the 19-inch wheels optional, and it flips for the Dream Range. The 19-inch wheels are standard. The 21-inch wheels are optional. And you get a little badge in the back of the vehicle that has a P or an R on it. And that's really the extent of the difference that we know at this point. There you go, right there. And yeah, they sent us some animations of the little badge in the back. But yeah, that's going to be the difference right there, and the wheels and a little more horsepower.
Okay. So no mention. Did they mention the tri-motor at all?
No, they didn't mention the tri-motor at all. It's going to cost the same price whether you get the range or the Performance. It's 169, I think, and the owners are going to be getting emails soon to say, the owners, the reservation holders of the Dream Edition, to say, hey, choose which one of these two versions do you want. It doesn't cost any different.
And in your article, you read up, you also mentioned that the Motor Trend were the first to get their hands actually driving it. And so Johnny Lieberman from over there, he drove it, I don't know, up the California coast from
LA to San Francisco.
So
it was a good score for Motor Trend. And the entire round trip, they drove it from LA to a point in San Francisco. Then they drove around the Bay Area for a little bit and ended up at Lucid's headquarters. And the entire trip was 445 miles.
One charge.
So they had two cars, one that Motor Trend was driving and one that Lucid was driving. I think it was Peter Rawlinson that was driving the other vehicle. And they both cars finished the 445-mile trip on a single charge. And the vehicle that Motor Trend was driving had 30 miles of estimated remaining range, and the vehicle that the Lucid was driving had 72 miles of estimated remaining range, because they were driving a little bit more efficiently. Obviously, they were trying to, finish up with the most remaining range, and Motor Trend was probably goosing it a little bit more than what the Lucid drivers were doing. So still in all, 445 with 30 miles is really close to 500 miles of range. And obviously it appears as if you drive it relatively efficiently, 500 miles of range will be pretty easy to hit with this vehicle.
Johnny was very effusive about the car. He really, really liked the interior.
There's a lot to like about it. I've seen the Lucid many times. I think the interior is beautifully appointed.
Kyle, do you have some thoughts?
I think look, Johnny's a great I know Johnny personally, Dominic, I know you do as well, and he's a great general car reviewer. This isn't a review that brought any new news to me personally. No. I've ridden in the car, I've seen the range. This is really no new news here. We've experienced everything seen. So for Lucid, I think it was a very controlled way to get sort of a story that they wanted out. They curated the experience, of course. They had, the CEO of the company there explaining things. They went to go look at watches. And look, that's one way to review a car. And that's, nothing against Johnny. He's an industry legend. That's awesome. I have mad respect for him. But, let's wait till Bjorn gets it, till Tom gets it, till I can do some tests with it. And then we can really, dive into the stuff I'm interested in, which is really reviewing the car, I think, from a driving performance standpoint, and doing a whole thing on that, doing a whole thing on its charging, a whole thing on its range, and a whole thing on its comfort and interior. I mean, we go way more in depth than most do. And I thought it was par for the course for Lucid to choose Motor Trend for this. What a lot of automakers do is they'll have a bunch of journalists come and then share their first drives all together. And that way it's a little bit more fair. You can have more than just one curated approach to your company, but they're a new company. It's their first car, and this is the approach they decided to do it in. Is it the most ethical? I'm not so sure.
Right. The way that the media report on EVs, a car like this is just ripe for 2 or 3 team, people on a team to go to a track, drive it at 30 miles an hour, hypermile it, get like 750 miles out of it. And you know what? Most media would lap that up. They'd be like, wow, electric car does 800 miles on a charge, because it's been done a million times in the past, but a car like this that naturally has great efficiency is going to smash that hypermiling record. And you know what? So many places would soak up a story like that, and it would do a lot of good things for the general perception of EVs and the wider public. It'd be utterly pointless, but be fun.
Yeah, one thing I should note, Johnny says in his story that they drove it at 67 miles an hour. So, I'm really curious to see what we'll get with it at true 70 miles an hour, which is like the minimum people are going to drive.
Yeah, but theirs wasn't a range test. They called it a range test, but it's impossible to call a single direction test a range test.
True.
Because you're going across varying tests. It has to be the same exact start and end point to be considered a true. And we're not even talking scientific, but just in the spirit of true range test.
You want to go the same elevation changes and then the same like wind direction, each direction to see.
You're always going to get hit with something one way, and you'll get the exact opposite on the way back to level out.
Right on. True. All right. Hey, I don't think we needed to say anything more about that for now. But so last week we talked a lot about. We had Nikki Gordon Bloomfield on the show from Transport Evolved and Clint Simone from Motor One.
And I just had lunch with her yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome! Right, and you were in Portland.
Yep.
So we talked a lot about the Chevy Bolt recall and problems they're having. Just after the show ended, GM expanded the recall to all the Chevy Bolt EVs and EUVs up until the modern
2021 models. Like that's bang up to date.
Yeah, everything that's coming out. And so they had suspended production for a week just because of chips or something. Well, they said that was the reason. But now I don't even know what's going. I don't even know if they're even making them right now. If they're just going to stop until because they have a huge battery issue to sort out. They're going to replace all the modules inside the batteries of all the bolts ever made.
140,000.
It's going to be like $1.8 billion, basically.
I think I think they've done 110,000 in the US.
Right.
And that's new cars that won't be hitting the road because they will be taking battery supply and moving it into
So we don't really have a lot of time to talk about this, but if anyone wanted to give us the highlights, any highlights,
it's just gutting. It's just gutting for generally getting new electric cars on the road. I've said to you guys on our chat before, like my current annoyance is we want more cars coming in the top of the new car funnel, and we need to get them through as quick as possible so that second and third hand cars get cheaper. Right. And that's 10,000, 140,000 cars that won't hit the road new because those batteries have had to be reallocated. And it's sad, it's gutting, and it's good for the owners, but it just delays things a little bit, but it is what it is.
Right.
And I don't have a highlight, but I have a low light. I'm mad because I had a Bolt EUV scheduled for a week loan starting this past Monday.
Oh no.
And I get the email Sunday night where, regret to inform you, it ain't happening, So I tried. I was like, well, how about if I just take it for one day? It won't be overnight. So you don't have to worry about me burning down my house while I sleep or whatever. And I was just going to cram the range test and charging test in one day. And it was like, no, we can't give it to you for 1 minute even. So,
right.
They couldn't have announced this like 4 days later, But in any event, that's the least of the problems. It's a terrible situation.
Right. And in their explanation, they put some of the blame on LG, which, LG, I think needs to accept a huge amount of the blame, though. GM has a huge battery center in Michigan, in Detroit area. And I don't know if this is something that they could have caught, but, because I think it's like a robot or something in the factory itself, maybe just tearing an anode or something. And there there's just some small mechanical issues that were propping up, but it sounds like it's not just that though, because these are batteries that were also made in Michigan as well, right? There's another battery factory that, so
it's in 3 sites. Yeah, it's the South Korean, it's the European, is it Netherlands, Belgium, and it's the US packs as well.
Slovenia. I
It's
forget
all
where
three. It's 3 factories.
Yeah, so I don't know really what's going on there, but it kind of sucks all the way around, and they need to sort it out because GM and LG are kind of tied together in the whole Ultium project. They have like 3 or 4 new gigafactories they're building. They should have the new one finished pretty soon. So they have to stay friends. They can't. They can't. I mean, it's a big problem. It's a lot of money, but they need to figure it out and move forward. I don't know what to say. So, Kyle,
Get your marshmallows ready. If I had one, I'd bring a bag of marshmallows and hope it burned to the ground. And, that's the best way. Everyone who has a Bolt and can park it, look, there's some people who have Bolts who live in underground parking scenarios that can only charge them full because of range needs. And for those people, I feel terrible for. For the people who are fortunate enough to have like a really long cable and a house out in the middle of nowhere, let that sucker burn. That's the best way to get your money back. Seriously.
I feel like we should just have a regular slide that I can show on screen that says this is not consumer advice, or this is Carl's opinion only.
Yesterday, and she's like all concerned about like driving her car. I'm like, don't you charge it outside? I'm like, is it near a building? And I'm just like, what do you care? Just let it burn down. That's the easiest way to get your money back.
Yeah, Inside EV's lawyers have already emailed me, so I'll get onto that.
Yeah. Okay.
Make a standard graphic, Martin, please. So we can just put it up over Kyle's face every time.
Look, I mean,
I was getting ready earlier when we had a previous discussion. I think it was about Alpha. If he was going to come out and say they're a total scam and all this stuff. I was getting ready for the disclaimer, but he was remarkably constrained and just beat them up a little bit without saying anything that could be litigious. So
we got away with it again.
Not putting people down. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. But letting your Bolt catch on fire would be the best thing if I had one, because it's like, here's the check. By the way, my very expensive laptop was in there, all our camera gear, everything. We need the checks. Thank you very much. And then you're good.
Why stop at that, Kyle?
We do not encourage insurance fraud on this show.
Yeah, we lost our firstborn that doesn't exist, everything else, and this was an unbelievably emotional hardship for us.
Hey, let's end with this. Hey, Louis Diaz says, breaking news, Rivian, RIVN, has reportedly filed for an IPO and looking to go public around Thanksgiving, looking for a valuation around $80 billion, a shocking jump from the $27.6 billion valuation. So, there, breaking news. Awesome.
Let's see how the cars are.
Yeah, OMS coming up very soon. I don't know. Can we talk about that, Tom, at all?
Probably not.
Okay. Okay. But so stay tuned. We could have some Rivian news for you at some point. That brings us to the end of our show. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EV's forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, or a rating if you're listening on another platform. Don't forget you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. You can follow Tom Malogny at Tommalog, that's with 2 M's. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor is at It's Kyle Connor. And I'm at Dominic_Y. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications. And we'll see you all again next week. Ciao.